Hi, in this video I'm going to be talking about why it's so important to allow yourself some time and space and some kind of activity, whether that's imaginary or actual, to really deeply calm and nurture yourself right after you've had a panic attack, right? I'm Orla Kirby, I'm a therapist, and I specialise in helping people to move themselves away from very high level panic and anxiety and or OCD. And I do this through a combination of solution-focused therapy and NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And really, by the end of working with people, I am wanting the people who work with me to be feeling able to access very deep calm, able to connect with their true selves, who they really are as a person, and able to very fully connect with and live and actually enact the kind of life they want to create for themselves. Okay, so in terms of then why is it so useful to, and so important, so hugely important to comfort and calm yourself deeply and richly right after you have a panic attack? Well, this is because of two reasons, right? First of all, this is about the approach and the attitude that you have towards yourself, right? It's really, really important for mental health generally and emotional well-being to have an attitude of self-love, of self-care, of looking after ourselves, right? And of gentleness towards ourselves. So, you know, if a friend was really upset and crying or panicking, you know, you wouldn't just wait till they stopped crying and then leave, right? Or wait till literally the second they stop crying and be like, can you make me some tea, right? Or give them a task or something. And yet often that can be what we do ourselves, right? Is that we, you know, it's possible to go through a very intense emotional experience and then just expect ourselves to immediately perform an action or go back to work or get on with this other thing, or perhaps we might also have a sense of wanting to push it down and not engage with it as a thing that's happened because it was so uncomfortable and so awful and we just want to distract ourselves now, right? And so it's interesting, right, that actually there can be a time here of nurturing and calming and really just looking after ourselves, comforting ourselves at this time, and that is really helpful just in terms of that's encouraging a great approach to yourself. It's you're giving yourself an instruction at that time of, I matter to myself, I am important, I deserve care and love and help, right, and supports, and that's what I'm going to offer myself, and that's so important for everything else, right? That has a really wide ripple effect in terms of how you're feeling about yourself and how you're viewing the world and yourself and other people. So that's huge, right? In and of itself, just like in the moment, it is what you need. You're giving yourself what you need, and that is huge because you're connecting with self-love and with yourself being important, your feelings being important, you know, and so on. And that's really crucial for emotional well-being. Also, in terms of kind of your experience of panic attacks more generally, this is the absolute best thing to do in terms of moving towards eventually experiencing less panic attacks or less severe panic attacks, or even just moving away from them altogether, right? Because there's a connection being formed here, right? So just like I might have a connection with, oh, you know, when I see the colour red, I have a panic attack, or when I go to a supermarket, I have a panic attack, or when I go swimming, I have a panic attack, or whatever. I have that kind of association. I'm also going to have kind of links in my mind about what happens after a panic attack, right? Oh, after a panic attack, I do this. After a panic attack, I do this. And that might be quite a repeated thing as well. So I can create a new repeated thing there, which in and of itself changes my whole experience of panic attack, right? Because I'm expecting a different thing afterwards, and that shifts my experience of it even while I'm in it, right? You're changing your brain patterns and your thought processes around what a panic attack is by setting up this new link, right? If I haven't previously been really deeply calming and nurturing and caring for myself after a panic attack, and then I start doing that itself was a big change, right? It's a new pathway that you're building that includes calming, nurturing, self-care, things that are important to you, right? So you're literally building a pathway to all of that great useful stuff from the panic attack, yeah? And if you do that repeatedly, it means that all of that stuff is going to be more accessible to you also in any panic attack, because you've literally built pathways, right? So that's huge. That's really huge. It's going to help you to feel safer even while you are in any future panic attack, right? Now, this might not at first be to the extent that you would recognize that happening or know or sense that that's happening, but that absolutely is a change that's occurring. And over time, even if you just change this and you change nothing else, particularly if right now you're not looking after yourself at all, or you're not calming or nurturing yourself at all afterwards, if you just shift that in itself would probably lower the frequency of panic attacks and lower the intensity of them, right? Isn't that amazing? So absolutely does matter. It matters what you do afterwards, right? I also say to people who wake up with panic attacks in the night or who wake up with nightmares, right? It's really important to pay that, not to just try to go back to sleep straight away. You want to pay that attention. You want to kind of honour that and do a bit of processing, and then a bit of making yourself feel good, and then a bit of really relaxing and calming and nurturing yourself, right? So that is significant because you are teaching your brain something in that moment, and particularly if it's repeated, you are just much more linked with your resources then, whenever that might happen again in the future. It also just makes it the other reason it impacts future experiences of high level distress is because you're actually making it overall a less distressing experience, right? So say, I'm being a bit silly here, right? But if someone starts having a panic attack at 3 o'clock and, they no longer feel like they're having a panic attack at 3:15, they could spend a whole hour feeling guilty about that, or a whole 5 minutes feeling guilty about that, or they could spend 10 minutes feeling embarrassed or angry, or they could just immediately distract themselves with like a work task or something, right? And these would all be different kinds of experience, none of which would be quite as all of those may in a way draw out the suffering, right? Draw out the suffering of the panic attack, yeah. Whereas someone who has a panic attack between 3 and 3:15 p.m. and then at 3:15 p.m. no longer senses that they are in a panic attack, or wouldn't define it as that, and then is really calming and nurturing with themselves, and goes and has a bath if that's something that they love, or imagines being in a bath if that's something they love, or goes outside if that's something they find helpful, or imagines being outside on a mountain if that's something they find helpful, right? And really is very gentle and speaks to themselves gently and kindly about the experience, right? That is kind of, it's reducing the amount of suffering, right? It's reducing that overall imprint, and the template of that panic attack is then going to be very different, right? It's going to be much, much lesser template in a way, because it's shorter, the suffering is less, right? So then that means that in terms of that being replicated, there's less of an impact for next time from that time, because you've kind of made it shorter and gentler and less awful here, right? And then if something else in the future reminds you of that one, or reminds you of the situation you're in at the time or something, it's not triggering as long a memory of suffering or distress or what have you, right? And there's a gentleness being remembered too, right? There's other more helpful, calming stuff linked to that. So it's quite a complicated thing to explain, really, but it absolutely shifts the template being inputted into your memory of that event at the time. It changes also your approach to yourself and to your own emotions and your own needs, and both of those things have these huge ripple effects outwards, right? So hugely important in the immediate moments after, and minutes after the panic attack, to be really deeply gentle in how you're talking to yourself about that and how you're thinking about that, and to do something to give yourself time and space to be calm and nurturing to yourself, and to actually use that time to do something specific that is calming and nurturing and that feels good. Yeah. Okay. So the next video, I believe, is about, she says, let's say, talk about yourselves. Oh, yeah, this is an interesting one, right? How to talk or think differently about panic attacks in a way that's helpful to you. So this is kind of about reframing, and yeah, the language that we use. Do we use those words, panic attack, or are there more helpful words? And yeah, I talk a little bit about that. Okay, see you in the next video.